The problem arises if the seller is unexperienced in the rules and regulations of real estate when they're told by a representative realtor that they have to do this or they have to pay that or they have to clear that. Is that necessarily true? And I think those are some big traps that for sale by owners step into because they don't know that that's something that is negotiable. They don't know that there's an option there for them not to have to pay that it could be a buyer expense.
Welcome to the Real Estate of Texas with the Gals of the Hill Country, brought to you by Solid Realty Group in Boerne, Texas at solidrealtygroup.com. And now your hosts, Jessica Johnson and Cali Red.
Good morning. Welcome to the Real Estate of Texas. My name is Jessica Johnson, and I'm here with my wonderful business partner, Miss Cali Red.
Hey, Jess.
How you doing today?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm fantastic, y'all. I've had a lot of coffee, so I'm ready to rock and roll.
Well, there you have it.
There you have it.
From downstairs?
From downstairs.
At the bakehouse?
At the
Bach-house.
At the Bach-house. We are super honored to be able to shoot our show upstairs at Richter's Tavern, owned by the wonderful Joey and Guy Sanders. And today we wanted to do a full circle and come back to Callie and I talking to you guys. And the big discussion we wanted to have today is, why do you want to hire a realtor? Callie?
Well, that's a very good question, Jessica. Why do you want to hire a realtor? I would say a couple of main reasons would be because realtors have access to a lot more data than just general public has regarding home values and the state of the current market and what needs to be done in order to get your home sold, or what it might be like to experience buying in any particular market, which is always shifting. Realtors can also point out red flags in properties that you may not notice as a consumer because you don't do this every single day.
Give me an example of that.
Well, if I drop a golf ball on the floor in this house, it might roll all the way over there because the foundation is bad. You just notice things about houses that other people don't notice because they're not walking through houses all the time.
Right. So you being able to see that as an experienced realtor, you would be able to identify some problem like that where someone that just comes in that's looking to buy a house may not even notice it till down the road.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that we always identify every problem. That's why we hire professional home inspectors.
Indeed.
But, I mean, obvious things. Yes, you see obvious things that sometimes people just don't notice. I mean, sometimes you go into different properties that have been rehabbed, and I like to call them lipstick on a pig properties, where they've slapped a bunch of paint everywhere. And I'll help you buy that if that's really what you want, but I don't really recommend it, There's definitely better properties.
So we do have a lot of fielded questions sometimes in our industry where people are like, well, I can throw it up on a for sale by owner, or I can do my own listing. What are some of the kind of concerns that people that list on their own get backed into that they're not really familiar with?
Well, I wouldn't know because I have never been a for sale by owner property. Jessica, what do you think some of the concerns that they get backed into are?
Well, I mean, first off, I think that they get into a listing on their own, and the first thing that happens is they get an offer submitted to them for someone to buy their house, and they're represented by an agent, and the agent will tell the seller, hey, you have to do this, or you have to pay that, or this is something that the seller has to pay for.
Well, the agent is there to represent their buyer.
Yes, absolutely. But we still have to maintain a decorum of honesty and ethical boundaries. And so a seller who does not have representation, who's being told by a licensed realtor that they have to pay something because that's a requirement, tends to be some information that's not truthfully shared. And I think that that's a big problem that you can arise from. You can have the agent that tells you, hey, the appraisal came in on the property and it's valued at X amount of dollars, but because the appraiser said that it's 450 square feet less, we have to drop the sales price to match it. How does that seller know that if that's the right thing or not?
Well, he should ask his agent.
Correct, which is why we're talking about why you need to hire an agent, because those are situations that you do come into. That is a problem that as a you're listing a house and you don't have that knowledge base, or they come back and the buyer's agent is telling that unrepresented lister that, hey, I ran some comps on here and the value of your house is actually this. How does that seller know that those are correct comps? How do they know to verify that that's not a sale that came in 24 months ago? So it doesn't match what they're actually wanting to list it for. Where did that seller get their value? I mean, did they go on Zillow or Zestimate or, these wonderful websites that'll tell you, oh, the value of your property is this. Where are they getting their numbers?
Well, I don't know. You'd have to ask them.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
No, but
yeah, I mean, I see more often than not, if I find a for sale by owner, the price is usually a little off compared to the comps that I run. But I would think that probably the issue that more for sale by owners probably face would be whether or not their buyers actually qualified to purchase the property.
Correct.
I don't think that they would probably, well, I mean, maybe they would know how to verify that, but I would think that would happen more often than not.
Yeah, no, making sure that the lender knows exactly what it is that you qualify for and make sure that that house does work for you. I think that that's an essential point that the seller has to know. And I think that it comes with kind of your hands tied because, like you said, as a licensed realtor, you can access the local MLS system. We can see things that have been bought. We can see things that have been sold. We can see the value that they've sold for. We can see if the sellers were willing to concede some closing costs. We can see if the seller was willing to pay for a home warranty for the house. We can check that information, which gives us a better, stronger database on where you're at price-wise for your house, where you're at on repair values for your house, what it is that you need to do versus what you have to do versus what you're told to do. And I think that at hiring a realtor, we're able to kind of overcome a lot of those speed bumps that you don't necessarily know that it's going to run into some of the problems that you have listing the house on your own.
Well, I think you don't know what you don't know until you get there and realize you didn't know.
One of the things as realtors is we have the ability to kind of see what commission is being paid by the person that's listing the house. And I know sometimes when you list a for sale by owner, unfortunately, you have kind of a unknown area of, is my client or is my buyer going to be able to get the house, first of all? And then second of all, because you're representing the buyer, am I going to be able to be paid for the sale of this transaction? And so there's a little more work that goes in for the buyer's agent directly dealing with the seller. The problem arises if the seller is unexperienced in the rules and regulations of real estate when they're told by a representative realtor that they have to do this or they have to pay that or they have to clear that. Is that necessarily true? And I think those are some big traps that for sale by owners step into because they don't know that that's something that is negotiable. They don't know that there's an option there for them not to have to pay that it could be a buyer expense, that it could be something that the buyer takes responsibility for. And I think that those are things to be aware of. And I think one of the biggest representations on the flip side is buyers that are getting into new builds. I think when they go into finding a neighborhood that they really like, that's got a brand new house that they can get settled into, if they go into that and they don't know what they're doing, and they're signing up for a bunch of the stuff, or they're adding all these extra upgrades, or they're considering this or that, not having a buyer representation on their side, which most of the times the buyer commission is paid through the seller, through the builder, through that. So it doesn't cost the buyer out of pocket expenses, and they go into something like that, then what happens if they get to a point in their build where that's not the right countertop that they purchased?
Well, I think that the main thing buyers need to keep in mind when they go into a new construction purchase is that the builder rep represents the builder.
Correct.
They only represent the builder. So, it's good to have someone representing you. And I mean, who wants to be on the side of the table all by themselves when there's a stack of other people opposite you?
Yeah.
So I think that you should always have your own representation in that scenario.
I think you should. Yeah, representation is very important. Education is very important. Knowing what you're doing, knowing what's going on, and knowing how you can protect yourself is essential in real estate. I mean, we've mentioned this on multiple shows that at the end of the day, buying and selling your home is one of the biggest expenses you're going to come across. And people do it more and more often nowadays. I mean, back in the 80s, you bought your house for 20 years till your kids grew up and then you downsized. You had two homes. And now, the average person moves every 5 to 7 years?
I believe that's correct. Every 5 to 7 years.
I know. So that's a very large expense that you have. And just in case you're joining us, we're here with my business partner, Cali Red, and the real estate of Texas. And we're talking about why you need a realtor, what the representation of a realtor is, and how we can help you in both the selling side and the buying side, and why that's so important. Got any other questions for me, Miss Callie?
Well, let me think. You were telling me a story the other day about someone you had talked to, ended up selling just a smidge bit too early and had to give up a lot of money on capital gains.
Oh, yes, we did. This was not a client that was ours. It was a situation I kind of heard on the outskirts. What happened is this client decided that they were going to sell their house. They wanted some money for a future venture. And so they had thrown their house up on the market. It had been listed for a little while. They took a price reduction on it, and they were willing to accept that price reduction. They got a full price offer on it. And during the negotiations, they were told that the house did appraise at value, but the concern was the appraiser had said that there was about 450, 500 square feet less than what the house had actually been listed for. About 450 square feet less. Yep. And so with that reduction, the buyers wanted a price reduction for that amount of square footage. And so you took another huge price reduction on the house, even though the house had been appraised correctly. It had been appraised at that value, even with 450 square feet less. And then we come to find out that the person was going to end up closing on their house about 2 weeks before their 2-year mark.
Yeah.
And so the capital gains that they were going to take was going to be another huge amount. So
yeah, when you told me that, I was
we're talking about
completely dumbfounded.
Almost $120,000 in a swing in someone's pocketbook of what they were supposed to make. And that's a huge amount, especially if you're looking to invest this into something to grow a small business.
Easy.
I mean, what if you were doing it for your kid's college fund and this was the money that you expected to do that?
Or what if I was just doing it because I want to put some money in the bank?
I know.
Yeah.
I know. So, these things, being uninformed, being uneducated, not purposely, but just not knowing what to ask, not knowing where to go in. And, that's why realtors are important. That's why they do help you get to the end. And our goal is to not inundate you with a bunch of questions, but our goal is to understand what it is. What's your reasoning behind buying a house? What is your reasoning behind selling a house? Because if you want to sell your house just because you're done with the house and you want to move on and you don't have any constraints, you're not really concerned about it, then we can list your house at a price that you can go a couple of months and you can wait for the right thing to fall in your lap. But if it's something where you got to move to Alaska tomorrow and you can't afford 2 mortgages, where do you fall? How do you price your house? How do you price it in a way that you can sell it, still get the most value for it, but you're not worried about the appraisal meeting value? You're not worried about any repairs that have to be done. You're not worried about X, Y, and Z because you know that at the end of the day, this is what you need to pocket. And we can back you into that because all the expenses that occur with real estate is all negotiable. And so when Callie and I sit you down and we talk about the things that you need to do to get you to the end of the line, we address all of those things. We address all of the costs that are associated with it, why those are associated with it. And, we can always give you a million suggestions on how this might line up. And of course, Most of the time it's going to be the 1,000,001, but we give you a big general idea of exactly what to expect, why to expect it, and how to expect it, and the time frame that goes on dependent on your needs.
Yeah, and that's the same for the buyers too. I mean, in
Absolutely.
this last year, if you didn't need a house right this second, it was probably not the greatest time to buy a house.
No, it wasn't.
So if you had a lease that you were already in for the next year anyways, then why not sit around and wait for a minute for the market to cool down?
Yeah.
Everybody's situation is individual, so it's important to have somebody that's on your timeline, not on their timeline.
And I think the biggest thing that people don't realize is that the realtor connects you with every aspect of the entire contract from start to finish. So whether you're on the buyer side or the seller side, that realtor communicates with the lender, communicates with the inspectors, communicates with the repairs, communicates with the title company, communicates with every single thing that you need done. And in working that, we don't let things fall through the cracks. And I think that's one of the biggest pushes that Cali and I have had in our 7.5 years at Solid Realty Group, is we really want to make sure that we're not letting you down, that we're not getting to the point where you're confused about something. Our job is to make sure that we keep everything afloat and that we're working in conjunction with the other realtors or the other seller or buyer and making sure that we end up getting this transaction to the closing table. And, making sure that if you do have something that you have to jump through, that we make sure that you know everything that you're jumping into and why you're jumping into it. And for example, we have a client that's purchasing a house right now. And, we had the inspector come in and there were some things that needed to get done. And so, we had the inspector that came in. We had all of those items that needed to be fixed. For example, the inspector had said that there was mold in the vents, right? Which at the end of the day, that happens. Those are things that happen. So it's easy enough to get an air duct company to come in and spray it out and to do all of that stuff, to service it, to make sure all the vents are clean. But if you get into a scenario in which the seller doesn't want to do that because the seller feels that that's something that's too expensive for them, or they don't want to damage their vents, or, whatever the reason is, how do we make sure that both parties end up being satisfied? And really what we do is we have a couple of options. At the end of the day, you don't necessarily, everybody is not completely 100% happy, but everybody's in a situation where we can deal with it. We can live with this case. We can live with the scenario. And so, you kind of bounce back and forth, and the seller says, oh, I'm willing to do this, but I'm not willing to do this. And, you give them a whole list of stuff. And some of it, of course, is the honey-do list. And some of it, we've got to talk our clients off the ledges.
Well, I think that's an important point, though, is that it can be, it's a very emotionally driven transaction for people when they're in it, right?
Oh, of course.
So it's a matter of keeping the emotion out of it and making it be a business transaction. And your realtor really kind of helps you put the dollars to the paper and keeping the emotion out of it.
Yes, because sometimes you get realtors that are emotionally tied to it, and then it seems to become almost a standoff sometimes, where they're not actually representing their client, they're representing their ego. And that's a hard point too, where you tell somebody, hey, I need this fixed or I want this done. And, the agent needs to make sure that they're representing their client.
Right. Well, I think sometimes clients too, realtors, client, whoever, people digging your heels on a point, right?
Right.
I want this done. And if I can't have that done, then, I want to take my toys and go home. Well, but they don't necessarily even know what that thing that they want done is costing them. They blow it up in their heads to be this giant thing. And then it turns out it's, worth $100. I know. So it's like, let's just keep everybody level headed. That's
Exactly.
sort of one of the main purposes as well, I would think.
Yeah. And everybody level headed, everybody on time, everybody in place to know exactly what it is that they're getting and they're expecting. You have a contract that has third-party financing attached to it, and there's X amount of days that are there for the lender to get the documents in, to get the appraisal in, to get all of those things that you need. And so, there's certain timelines that you have to make, because the seller also needs to be informed that, hey, the lender is progressing with the loan. The lender is in this step, this phase. This is the only thing that we need left over, because you don't want to get to the end of the day, I mean, where the seller's like, okay, I'm ready to close. And the title company's like, we don't have lender docs, because nobody called and verified that the lender was actually processing a loan. And the lender's like, oh, I never got the contract. Sorry, guys. We're, restarting.
Oh my, well, that would be not good.
Remember we had that situation with the title company, not us, but it was one of the stories that it was like the title company never got any acknowledgement of the contract.
No, I don't remember that one.
Oh, okay. That was a bad one. Those are things that your realtor needs to make sure that they're doing.
I remember the one where the guy didn't move out, where it's like, oh, I'm supposed to be gone by the closing date? I thought I could stay for... What?
I know.
You're an agent. You're not even packing yet.
I know.
We're going to delay the closing a couple days. Give you some time.
Or I mean, we've gone to houses with final walkthroughs in which, I mean, remember the one where they took all the stones out of the backyard to the pool?
Oh yeah, the pathway,
the entire pathway. And so we go to walk through the house, and there's 20 stones that are big, beautiful limestone stones that are completely gone, and they had pulled all the flowers out of the little flower beds around the pool area because they wanted to take it with their new house. We had somebody take a flagpole, an entire flag out of the front yard, like they broke the concrete and they dug it up. And those are things that you just don't think about. And it's interesting because you have to approach those situations and you have to be like, okay, how do I handle this? What do I do? What do we do now? Because my client or their client expected something and they show up with a different thing. And those are emotional things that tie you to, that, like Cali said, that little, I'm going to take my toys and go home because I didn't get what I want. And you're like, wait a second, that we can fix this. This is a inconsequential, 3-hour delay in your life. We will be able to handle it. We'll be able to do it. And, sometimes without representation, you don't know where you can go from there, or you're just told, nope, sorry, take it. You can't. And that's something that people just kind of sometimes will take a deep breath and say, okay, I'll take it. But it's not really what it should be, but they're being told by someone who is in the industry that this is the way it goes, and they don't know any better. And so our whole point today was to talk to you about why you needed representation, whether it's the buyer side or the seller side. And if you guys have any questions for us, you can reach out to Solid Realty Group. Both Cali and I are available. Our phone number is 210-827-3733. And our website is solidrealtygroup.com. And of course, you can find us on Facebook. And if you have any questions at all, check out our Moving to Texas All About Boerne page and post some questions for us that we're happy to answer on our show. And got anything else for us today, Cali?
Nope, I think that'll do it.
All right. Well, when we get back, we are going to talk to Diana Ward for our Boerne Business Spotlight with Uptown Chic. What a fabulous little place.
Yes, I love
it.
that place. Very cute.
All right. Real estate of Texas, and we will be right back. The real estate of Texas is always changing. Get a solid start to buying or selling a house with Solid Realty Group. Hey, y'all. I'm Jessica Johnson, co-owner of Solid Realty Group, Boerne's 5-star realtors, where we have saved our clients over $3 million. Given today's rising home values and interest rates, every penny counts. Call Solid Realty Group to buy or sell, and we can help you save more and stress less. Call us at 210-827-3733, solidrealtygroup.com.
Welcome back, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us here on the Real Estate of Texas. Today we have in the studio with us Diana Ward of Uptown Chic, right here at 153 Main. Hi, Diana. How are you today?
There.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I enjoy your shop all the time whenever I'm over here in the building.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yes, so tell us all about you and your shop down there.
Okay, we have been opened on Main Street approximately 4 years. And we currently have another boutique in New Braunfels called Alibi Boutique. We did have another one called Uptown Chic, which was our first Uptown Chic. We started it 12 years ago, but during the pandemic, we merged it with Alibi Boutique because it was difficult to have 3 full-time boutiques with getting workers. And we also created an online presence.
Oh, so how's that going, the online portion?
It's going good.
Yeah. That's a different venture for you.
It is.
Good. So what brought you over to Boerne?
We had been in New Braunfels, and we were looking for another site in the hill country, and it just seemed like a perfect fit because it was like 40 minutes from New Braunfels, and we knew people like to enjoy the hill country. And so we just decided, we drove all in the surrounding areas, and we settled upon Boerne, and there was a space available.
Good.
We're so glad to have you. Your shop is darling. It's dangerous. It's
Oh,
so
thank
much
you.
fun.
Thank you so much.
But tell us, how many different little vendors do you guys have in there that you bring in?
Oh, we probably have 30 to 40. We bring in a variety of vendors.
I know that's really cool. Where do you find them?
We go to markets, we go to Dallas, we go to Vegas, we go all over the place.
And then you bring them all to Boerne, and
We
so we can
do.
shop in one little
Yes.
place and get everything that we want.
Thank you.
So you're located downstairs underneath Richter's Tavern, correct?
Yes.
At the very front. So how do people find you? How do they get in touch with you?
They either walk by traffic or from word of mouth. A lot of people have been customers of ours, and a lot of people from New Braunfels, because we've been there for so long. We send them on over to Boerne, because if they don't find something at our shop, we want them to find it somewhere locally in Boerne.
Good. Now tell me how you got into the boutique business.
Out of college, I started working for a high-end clothing line called Guy Laroche, and it was out of France. And so I was a buyer and a manager for them. I traveled to Europe and New York. So that was my first career. And then I raised my children and wanted to stay home with them and raise them. And then I picked back up, and right now both my daughters are in the business, helping with both stores.
Oh, that gave
So
me
it's
goosebumps.
kind of a
How
family
wonderful.
affair.
Yeah, that's a great story.
How great. Well, thank you so much for coming on and joining us. We really love to talk about the Boerne Business Spotlight, and we are very happy to have Diana here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's all the time we have today for the Real Estate of Texas, presented by Solid Realty Group. Remember us if you're in the market for a new house or thinking about selling the one you've got. Call us today at 210-827-3733 or go to solidrealtygroup.com. Have a beautiful day.
Bye, y'all.